Greetings. Guten Tag, Talafalava. Bonjour, bonjour. And this is Dr. Snow Brown, catching up with you all again, especially the masses, in the form of the Snow Canclog flock and the Snow Sheep, Snow Shepherds, SEC1, SEC2, my congregation, precious little munchkins, special lots, sorry lots. Anyway, this is the 17th of August, 2023. I want to take this opportunity to dedicate this preaching, particular this video, especially this video, to my grandfather, Tialino Herman Treviranus, and also his dad, that is my German great-grandfather, Heinrich August, his middle name is August, Treviranus. I want to dedicate this preaching to, because it's so important, and also very deadly, so significant as well. Well, in this lifetime, I'm probably a brand new clergyman in the form of a natural noble pastor. That's correct. I am one of many clergymen from the long line, bloodline of the Treviranus family tree. And of course, the Treviranus family come from Trier, Germany, Deutschland. So I am one of many clergymen in the history of the Treviranus family branch. That's correct. And I'm a brand new clergyman. That's correct. Who owns a very valuable, rare intellectual property that is registered as a limited company, a brand new private company called Crystal Kingdom Church TV Limited, that I initially ran or tried to on Facebook from 2016. Then it got registered as a private incorporated company, on the 11th of January 2018. And then, of course, gradually my so-called private company was moved to my YouTube channel, where it is at the moment as a number 2 CKCTV YouTube channel. So that meaning I had issues, major hacking issues and criminal stalking issues on my Facebook, that I had to shut it down and transfer it to a YouTube channel. And even when I transferred it into a YouTube channel, it seems like there is a group of very harmful people locally in this country, and also in this country where I reside at the moment as a noble citizen, as a New Zealand citizen, and also as a natural noble pastor, or as a German noble, being New Zealand, brackets, Aotearoa. So there is a group of criminals in the form of MMBs, KKKs, from two most notorious criminal organizations in this country that I have been preaching about throughout my ministry, that I have now learned have not only targeted this meek natural noble pastor or meek noble, or this new director of a private company, since 96, through one of their associates who at that time was a student at Victoria University, by the name of Tavi Talipine, that is now to a Dr. Tavi Talipine, and is preaching in Samoa in the National University. That's correct. So back in 96, I was set up, there is no doubt about that, by this criminal organization called the Mongol Mob Association. That's correct. That I have been targeted by here in my local community, in my local township called Apahat, or I give it a title, Apaskatihati, or even inside this address here, where I reside in, that is a Crown entity. It's called Grandad Housing New Zealand for the last 9 years. So the significance of my intellectual property, it is the first and the only intellectual property that is not only a private church, brand new interactive church, but it's also a company, that's correct, as well as a private monarch that is connected, that has 3 round tables, it has a sovereign head, and I am, of course, the representative of the sovereign head. So it is a very valuable intellectual property. The problem is when I've got relatives who have a harmful connection or a bad connection in the form of a criminal organization, such as the Mongol Mob Association and the KKK, and being also associated members of the KKK. When family members, like myself, that's correct, who is a half caste here in this country, I am actually a full Pākehā because of my intellectual property being a kingdom. It's German, being German, that's correct. I am a full German now because of my title, Dr. Snow Brown, that's correct, which is a sovereign head or a sovereign knighthood title. Now, when you have those kind of bad connections, you are likely either you're going to be harmed, targeted by the criminals. You're going to have anything that you produce stolen, duplicated, counterfeited, that's correct. You will even be experimented upon, exploited, and even subjected somehow to one of their so-called commodity property chattels. So this is what's happened. This is what has happened. During my tenancy here for 9 years, I have been targeted. I have become a victim, subjected to slavery, subjected to torture and cruelties, subjected to criminal stalkings, my hackings onto my into my intellectual property, into my private company, on social media platforms. I have been targeted by not only members of the elites of the government of New Zealand, but also by members, officials like the police officers that are associated and are connected to that police intelligence unit and connected back to this criminal organization that I've been dealing with. So throughout my ministry, while I'm busy, I'm trying to create a livelihood, a secondary income, that's correct. Normally, if people are on a benefit in this country, you got to find a way to either get a part-time job or create your own company, or you try and create your own livelihood, an extra income. So that is what my intellectual property was supposed to do, that's correct. But instead, as you can see, I got hijacked. That's correct. And I got denied so many of my other privileges, not only as a tenant, but also as a full citizen of New Zealand, and even as a noble. And nobles, royals or full royals, have more rights. They have more rights even than the elites and even the majority of citizens who are commoners and criminals in this country. So people like myself, I have a very important intellectual property that is very valuable. That in lame terms, if it was patent, it would be worth in the billions. And I've been saying that, my intellectual property, once when it first came out, when it first got registered, I said it's worth 150 billion. A kingdom and a monarch like mine, one of a kind intellectual property like that, is worth 150 billion New Zealand dollars. But back in 2016, when the logo first was born and created through my guardian Samalama, their logo my company had not been created yet, but my kingdom was worth 150 million. That's correct. And no, not billion, but million. So the moment it became registered, my intellectual property was now worth 150 billion. That's correct. So, in every year that I have been preaching inside my kingdom and teaching and ministering and pastoring on the level of a meek noble. Now, I am not a reverend. I am not a deacon or a lay preacher. That's correct. I am not an evangelist, but I am a natural, noble pastor. That's correct. Excuse me. And I'm qualified. I'm qualified because I have my own logo. It was later registered as a private company, private ministry, 11th of January 2018. But ever since then, since 2016, and even before that, there's been a lot of hackings into my digital devices inside this address that is now full of MMB, KKK members, associates, full of gang members inside this address. This wasn't the case when I initially moved here on the 29th of April 2012. That's correct. So once, and I think on the 14th of November 2019, when I went to give the farewell letter to Mrs. Yoke, they're at their address in Timarua to say goodbye to the rest of the Treviranus clan and to let them know why, the reasons why. And I think they soon learned that I'm a full royal, that I have a monarch, that I have an intellectual property that's very valuable and rare, that I now have rights as a meek, as a royal, as a full royal, and even as a noble. So what did my rallies do? Instead of having a meeting about it, they decided to ignore it. And then, of course, they then wanted to cash in and take advantage of this, of my letter. That's correct, which they always do, which I had no idea that they would actually take advantage. So, and they were served trespass notice as well. So instead of, they now became curious and even more interested in my intellectual property and what I was doing on my digital devices and what I was even doing on the social media platforms like Facebook and now YouTube. So what did my evil rallies do? They went through the criminals inside this building. They went through their KKK associates as well. They even went through the elites and the rest of the people here locally, but more so the criminals that they are connected to. And even that police intelligence unit that I did not know, they are actually part of it. And then they started to dictate, they started the arbitrary dictatorships, and that was so that they could gain access as to find out what is she doing on her digital devices and why is she doing it that way. They were now wanting to study me, use me like a case study. And it went as far as experimenting as well. That's correct. So they then decided, we'll take the opportunity. We will go through the KKK, MMB, the criminals, as well as the associate and the elites, to study this baby elephant inside this address and even outside this address. So what I didn't know was that my rallies had already been using me for what they could get out of, whether it was to be part of the elites, part of take advantage of these two criminal organizations, or even to take advantage of the police intelligence unit, or even to become part of the New Zealand police force. That's correct. Since 96. I had no idea. So while I'm busy doing my own thing, I had no idea that my rallies are actually stalking me and knowing about my movements and knowing about my private business and even what I'm saying inside my own private spaces. And it got to the point where they were actually paying the criminals and also members of the police intelligence unit to monitor and screen and even to dictate to my privileges. Now, is that the right thing to do? No, it's not the right thing to do, but then that would make it very clear that they are part of that criminal organization. They are also part of the elites. They are also part of the New Zealand police force, that's correct. On a harmful level, on a harmful level. So wherever I have been going and dealing with people, my rallies have been able to know about my whereabouts and my movements. That's correct. And seems to be the police officer that violated my person that I've been preaching about on the 24th of June 2003 seems to have been doing a lot of arbitrary dictatorships on behalf of my rallies, who are actually, by the way, sick with erotomania and incest. Why would any of your relatives, that's correct, very blood relations, be stalking you or needing to know what you're up to and what your next move is going to be, what you're going to do tomorrow, what did you do yesterday, or what are you thinking of doing in the next month or in the next year or so? Is that the right thing to do? No, it's not the right thing to do. That's correct. They even used professional people to diagnose me with a serious mental disorder. That's correct. Gave me an order of supervision. That was a setup. So they know the lawyer. His name is Mr. Anthony Shaw. He is an associate of that criminal organization called the Mongol Mob Association. He's also an associate with the KKK. He's also a member of the Police Intelligence Unit. So he knows all the ministers, especially the police commissioner. That's correct. So, and one of his brother was a manager of remote client unit that I became a client of. So there seems to be a lot of close connections. That's correct. Why am I giving you all this information, Snow King Club? Probably because you know the seriousness now of my case. So tomorrow on the 18th, I'm supposed to file a restraining order against the Mongol Mob Association, the President, the Police Intelligence Unit, the Government of New Zealand, and that includes some of the ministers, like the one from Kaingaora Housing New Zealand, Working Income, Ministry of Social Development, the Minister for Courts, Minister of Justice, and even the Police Commissioner. And that would also include all those people who were served trespass notice by me personally with special conditions. So I'm supposed to do that tomorrow. Now I cannot do that because of the accident that happened last Friday, the freak accident that happened at the New Zealand Couriers depot in Petone, 2224 Marine Parade. That Post Haste Couriers, that is the same depot also for the Post Haste Couriers in Lower Hutt branch, linked to the Nauranga branch in Wellington. But I can tell you right now, you're listening to me speaking to you all. Except, don't forget this. Last Friday, I was supposed to be in my grave. By the following day, so that's the 11th of August, 2023, I should have been dead last Friday. And I should have been declared, in fact, dead in the morgue the next morning. And a funeral should have been conducted, and probably would have had a funeral tomorrow, the 18th of August, or even today. Was my funeral day, should have taken place, and I should have been buried. That's correct. Oh, this is very serious, isn't it? It's okay, it's happening to me. It's not happening to any of you. So the fact that while I was uploading the previous video that I posted inside my kingdom there at the library, and I was listening to it because I wanted to listen to my preaching. I always do after I post them. And I don't know, I sense this hostility inside the apart library. Like they were annoyed for some odd reason. And I'm thinking, what has my preaching got to do with you? That's correct. Me uploading my video there at the library, and I'm listening to it, and they're getting annoyed because they're hearing it. I'm thinking, yeah, but it didn't happen to you, did it? The freak accident didn't happen to you. All the stuff that I'm preaching about inside my kingdom, it didn't happen to you, didn't it? So you're not Dr. Snow Brown, are you? So why are you getting annoyed about it? Why are you getting annoyed about the issues that I'm preaching about? Because it's not affecting you, and it hasn't happened to you, has it? No. So I wouldn't need to worry about it if you're not going to pay any of my donation. Pay me a donation, that's correct. Take me seriously. You're not part of my flock. You're not part of my congregation. You're not part of my private company. So you shouldn't worry about it. That's correct. But think about this, New Zealand. Last Friday, what it really means to a big national pastor like me, who is living among very toxic people and dangerous people inside this address. The fact that some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, that is such a bold thing to say, considering the fact that you know that you're living among evil people. You know that you're actually being harmed by the same people that are living inside your address. And yet the fact that it's such a brave thing to talk about it, and preach about it, that's great. And even know that the very people that are trying to dig your grave are the very people, that's right, that run the country. And even, that are also giving you the financial support for you to live in this country. That's great. So I guess what I really want to point out now, because this is a very special preaching in tribute of my dad, Tialino, Vangalilo Tangalua, Walter Herman Treviranus, and also my grandfather, his dad, Tialino Herman Treviranus, who was actually an ordained deacon and also a forester and other issues and other. He was a man of many talents, and my dad was. He wasn't an ordained deacon, but he did preach at one stage. So I heard there in the Wainumata Sambo Church. That's right. My dad had the gift, but I don't think he wanted to be an ordained deacon, but he had the gift. He had the gift. I know that. But his dad, my grandfather, Tialino Herman Treviranus, established many churches in Samoa. That's correct. So he definitely had the gift of the clergyman. And then, of course, my great-grandfather, German great-grandfather, Heinrich Treviranus. So these are the three most worthy men in my immediate family, that's great. It's because they're the ones who passed down the gift to me, who passed the gift for me in order to create my own church. My dad wanted to create a church of his, to establish a church here in Upper Hutt. So was one of his dreams. He couldn't fulfill that dream because it would have been denied, you see. His younger siblings that are jealous of my daddy, that's correct. And even their spouses, in terms of their brother-in-laws, were very jealous of my daddy. So I don't think they would have supported him if he wanted to establish a church here in Upper Hutt. That's correct. My dad would probably find it really tough that he would probably, throw in the towel, that's correct, so to speak, and leave this local township altogether, possibly move to another township, but then again, same thing, it might prosper, but not as good as it should be, not as well as how his daddy did it back in the islands, how his churches were prospering, up and running. That's correct. Now, of course, it was never, I remember, it was never my dream to establish a church like in the form that has been born now in this country. It was never my dream to establish a church, actually. This was just a thing, a gift that came through. I guess it was the gods had chosen my vocation long time ago. I guess I didn't even know that I had my grandfather's gift, let alone his descendants' gift of the clergyman. That's correct. But to think that my rallies, for example, Mr. Yoke, who is an ordained deacon, to think that some of my daddy's brothers and even sisters, but more so the brothers, like Mr. Yoke, he never went to university to get a degree. His wife was privileged to get her master's here in New Zealand and her degree there in Kansas University in America. But Mr. Yoke never had the opportunity to go to university in this country and get a degree like my daddy. My daddy got his diploma of forestry, Papua New Guinea, and got a scholarship to go to the Philippines, Manila University, to get part of his so-called degree, diploma of forestry. Now, as for the other siblings of my daddy, I think he's the only one. He's the only one that went to university and got a scholarship as well to get the degree, diploma. Except when we moved here in New Zealand, 17th of December, 1982, we came from Samoa. My poor daddy, so-called, I think, his qualification got undermined. His gifts and talent even got undermined. His horse racing, that's correct, was suddenly controlled and even denied the winnings that he deserved as a noble, as a German noble. Remember, he's a Bacchia. But of course, they're very ignorant and arrogant, but very racist, this country. That's correct. I can't believe that my dad's winnings, that's correct. Just because he was part Samoan doesn't mean that suddenly the Pākehās and the Maoris in this country had a right to deny him his privilege of a Pākehā, and even as a horse racing, trainer or owner, to have his winning, to get his winnings. That's correct. He had a 99 win record back in the islands, and yet here in this local township, I can't believe it that the Maoris had sex with the Pākehās, vice versa. Now, this criminal organization and your rallies, evil rallies, decided to control your daddy's winnings. That's correct. His horse racing. And they even wanted their names. When he went to register his intellectual property, his horse, horse racing and whatnot, they suddenly wanted their names to be added onto the registration. That's correct. Which was his mother and a few of his other brothers. I didn't understand that part. That's correct. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you own an intellectual property, your name is the only name that should be on it. That should be registered. That's correct. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's certainly my dad's side of the family in terms of his siblings, but in terms of also some of their in-laws, brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, especially brother-in-law, I think there was a lot of jealousy and a lot of hatred and hostility. And that came particularly from men that were unqualified, had no degrees, or had no qualification of any sort. They had no royal statuses. Remember, the Treviranus family are part royal. They had nothing. They didn't have any, important stuff. That's correct. So my dad was like way up there, and they were way down there. That's correct. I guess what I'm saying is that when my dad, because they know that he's part coconut, that's correct. So the men that he would have been working for the periodic detention, that would have been under his authority as a warden, they probably would have been really jealous. They probably would have been really jealous, especially if they came from a criminal organization like the Mongol mob. That's correct. Because of the Webster side of the family, the Treviranus family. They would say, I wonder how he got the job. That's correct. The usual kind of questioning. And what they didn't realize is that my dad is way overqualified. That he then became the forest ranger. That's correct. They covered the whole region, a lot of the regional parks. That's correct. A responsibility that normally most coconuts you can only dream of. That's correct. But of course they would say, how did my daddy get such a position? How did he get the authority to be able to, that's correct, to look after, to be trusted by the Pākehās in this region of the country, to look after, to have that kind of responsibility? It's because of his German heritage. It's because he's part German, and also because he's got 3 chief titles. He's a Matai. And also he's an elder at the church. That's correct. My dad was a man of he was multi-talented. He had many gifts and talents. But I guess the one dream that he couldn't fulfill was to establish the church in this country, in this local township. He couldn't. The dream that his daddy could do it in the islands, but he couldn't do it here. You know what I mean? And then along comes his eldest, who is the only one out of 7 children that is still single, not married yet. That's correct. I have not stand before the holy altar. I have stand before my own holy altar here, my private wedding to Mr. Archangel Warren. That's correct. Back in 2019 or 2020. Yeah, that I conducted privately. But I guess what I'm saying is, along comes me. I have the gift. I have the boldness. I registered my own private little church. That's correct. Interactive church. And yet what happens? There were so many Jello Mellow Marshmallow. People started hating me. That's correct. For what I was saying, whether it be my style of preaching, or whether because of the people that I was preaching about, or whether it's because, and then they started saying, well, let's just deny her a donation. Let's just let that criminal organization, pay people to deny her privileges. Because she's blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. New Zealand, you guys are the losers. Not me. Because even when you tried to dig my grave, try to bury me last Friday, that was a death penalty. You went through some criminals, that's right. This is a courier company. Yeah, but it looks like they're gang members as well. So the forklift driver looks like he's an associate, a KKK associate. Graham looks like a KKK associate. They look like they're all part of the police intelligence unit. Get it? I guess because I was wondering who intercepted my package from Temu up there in Auckland. Because the 31st of July, because I've got the list of, the chronological order of how the package was passed on and who took possession of it. And the 31st of July, 2023, that package was held there at the National Customs Clearance. For clearance. And normally in standard procedure of clearance, it only takes 3 hours. In one day, 3 hours. That's great. Normal clearance. For a custom clearance, that's great. In my case, looks like the package was held there on the 31st. And then they decided, and then it said they completed the clearance at the customs on the same day, the 31st of July. Then they decided that they would hold it again for another clearance on the 2nd of August. And then they decided to hold it again on the 7th of August. They kept it there. They kept it there for another clearance. That's correct. So what that tells me is that somebody down here, a courier company or some sort of specialized unit down here in this local township in Wellington, had called the customs up in Auckland to hold that part, to intercept that package. We want to know. We want access to it, but we want to know what's inside it as well. Now, is that the right thing to do in New Zealand? Remember, it stayed to the 31st. The package arrived into your country, up there at the airport, 31st. Now, for me, because I've lived among gang members, harmful people at this address, I have come to learn what dates and numbers mean. That's correct. And when the number 31 comes in, they like that number because I know what it means. That's correct. So I started to read. So then, finally, about the 8th of August, package, I think First Global Logistics picked it up on the 8th. That's correct. From the customs, where it was supposedly sitting there, dead duck. And then they handed it to who? To Post Haste Couriers. Post Haste Couriers then decided to do a tiki tour. So somebody was actually dictating to the package. That's correct. The movements. And the package, they were telling them where to take it. So from Auckland, the Post Haste Couriers from First Global Logistics, it came down to Upper Hutt. It came down to Upper Hutt here. It went to Totara Park. It went to Totara Park. I wonder who was at Totara Park or even Brown Owl for them to take the package down there. That's correct. Right? And then from there, it went to their depot there in Petone. The Post Haste, the New Zealand Couriers. That's correct. But they made it the 11th. They made it the 11th. So on the 11th of August, that package was now ready at New Zealand Couriers in Petone for me to come and pick it up. That's correct. That's correct. Problem is, I couldn't even find, the depot or where the street was. So I got there late. But prior to arriving there on the 11th of August, at around about after 5 in the evening, somebody had dropped me off outside. The New Zealand Couriers and Post Haste Couriers and even my rallies had already made an agreement. They had already made an agreement with all the people up in Auckland, First Global Logistics, as well as the customs. They had made an agreement. Can you imagine what I'm trying to get at? That package was supposed to be in my hands, arrive in my hands on the 7th of August. But the package was delayed until the 14th, which was a Monday, for me to pick it up from their depot. That's correct. But it should have been in my possession by the 7th. So New Zealand Couriers and Post Haste Couriers with my rallies, who are part, and the police intelligence unit decided to make a deal or an agreement of some sort. They all came together and made the agreement that when that package arrives up in Auckland, we're going to intercept it. And because if it arrives in on the 31st, we want it to arrive if it gets there on that date. We're going to intercept it. We're going to dictate to it. We're going to open the package up because we need to take pictures of the contents. And then we're going to do something else as well. And that was, have a look at this. That's correct. These are little, if you can see that. That's correct. These are like little miniature jaw sizer. And it came in this little miniature you know, this little box here. So a jaw sizer, that there, is something that you put in your mouth. It's a lot bigger than this. To exercise your jaws, and to shape your jaws as well. But instead, what happened was that they must have taken the originals of these and put these little duplicates, counterfeits, a copy. And I think this must be a joke. This must be a joke. This isn't the first time. This is the second time this has happened. So what that tells me, Police Intelligence Unit have stolen. They're at the customs. The originals of my jaw sizer, that's correct. And have given me a little miniature, funny, like a joke, to make fun of me. Jaw sizer, that's correct. But what this case is really about, the fact that they waited until the 31st, the moment that the package hit the customs up in Auckland, and they wanted to make it the 31st, they sealed the death penalty. The real reason why New Zealand couriers and post-haste couriers and my rallies and the Police Intelligence Unit, as well as that lawyer, decided to intercept my package up in Auckland on the 31st was to seal the death penalty. That's correct. That's what it means. Death penalty. Number two. That's correct. So that means something was going to happen there at New Zealand couriers. That I was supposed to die. I was supposed to be dead on the 11th of August because they had intercepted my package. And they had stolen the originals and put the duplicates in there. So this is what you call arbitrary dictatorships, but that's what I call fucking arrogance and bullshit. That's correct. So the son of a bitches actually pre-planned, premeditated that freak accident that happened last Friday. That was not an accident. That was deliberate. They wanted me to be dead. Did you know that the paramedics turned up? I've got their little sheet here. Advice to patient, head strike. Sorry to hear you have hit your head today. Our assessments show you have no serious injuries, signs of concussion or vitals. Some things to look out for: nausea, vomiting, severe headache, drowsiness, or confusion. If anything changes or you become concerned, please call 111 again. Right? And it's got a serial number, paramedic signature, 15, the PIN is 15486. The incident number is 0579. The date is the 11/08/2023 at 5:45 was when they arrived. That's correct. And the access code, I think it's in P92PD3PF. So that's real. That's not a lie. That's correct. And the irony is the paramedics did a great job. The thing was that the paramedics there was nothing they could do. That's correct. But to see my blood pressure was 151/101, blah, blah, blah. It was high. My sugar was 6 point something, so that was okay. But the paramedics knew that if I had a massive concussion, that's correct, and the blood pressure is that high, there's not much they can do, and taking me down to the emergency department isn't going to help. The only thing that the paramedics could do was give me three painkillers, three tablets. That's correct. That was about all they could do. And of course, the advice and their advice. And they couldn't even give me a lift either, down to the bus stop. They'll take me, for further examination there at this local hospital. I guess in their assessment, I wasn't going to make it on that day. So don't waste our time. Don't waste giving her any stuff anymore, because it looks like she's going to die. In other words, the paramedics had ruled me out. That's correct. And so did the police. They suddenly thought, well, okay, this is the video. We'll think about it. I guess in their minds, there was no way I was going to make it on that day, at the end of 11th of August. That's correct. And the idea of me coming on Monday to pick up the package, I guess the guys, the forklift driver and Graham and the rest of the crew inside the so-called warehouse, New Zealand Courier's warehouse, that were there that evening, and possibly the police as well, they thought I was dreaming. They thought I was dreaming. She's dreaming. She's not going to make it. We know anybody who endures that kind of, assault, that is quite deliberate. It's not going to make it. She ain't going to make it. She's dreaming. She won't even make it past, by the 18th of August, let alone past that date. So I guess they all ruled out. And I suddenly realized from yesterday until today that I was dealing with gang members. The very people that touched my package, that intercepted my package, that even set me up, that's correct, on the day, they are all gang members, that's correct. Now, how did that happen? I never asked, that's correct. And I'm not even a gang member. And I'm not even an associate. How did that happen? How could the government of New Zealand, let alone the Minister of Housing, could be so fucking stupid? That's correct. And how could the police commissioner also be that stupid in the local police station? That's correct. Well, it can only be your rally. It can only be your rallies. But I think the saddest part was that the local Maoris, decided to take full advantage of my teachings, of my intellectual property, anything I produced on my digital devices, even my rules. Man, you guys stole the lot. Even my copy of my play was stolen by that unit, specialized unit. That's correct. Everything I created, you people stole for your own personal, selfish empowerments and advancements. But you didn't give me anything in terms of monetary terms, that's correct, or a donation. So what do you expect from me? That's correct. When all you do is steal and steal, it is no wonder people leave your country. So I guess your only purpose, the reason why you decided to take me out last Friday, because I know what number 11 means. You see, the 11th of August, 2023, reminds me of my cousin's parents' double 70th, that's correct, that took place on the 11th of August, 2017, there at Chiltern St. James Hall, school hall, yeah. So that's why that date is so significant. They had actually fucking planned, that's correct, to bury you, let alone to kill you there at that warehouse, at the New Zealand Courier's warehouse, that's correct. They had actually fucking used a bunch of arrogant, racist, white son of a bitches who might be part Irish, I wouldn't be surprised, or English, that's correct, to try and fucking bury you. You got the fucking nerve, that's correct. Now, you're all going to be dead meat. I'm going to Germany. But I'm expecting a deployment of 10,000 armed forces, die Polizei, that's correct, to deal with all of you because you are all gang members. That includes my rallies, especially your cousin's side of the family and herself and her stinky, whoring ass. Stinky ass, that's great. Le mere salati, pa'umuku, pa'sasaya, that's great. The rest of your family, starting from your mommy, that's great. And your daddy, I wouldn't be surprised if you fuck the shit out of all the Pākehās in terms of KKK, that's correct. To do what you do, To have me run down there, run down by a bunch of fucking strangers, you got the fucking nerve. So that you can steal my identity, steal my title, steal my company, take the whole lot. Why don't you just fucking take the whole thing? That's correct. You wanted to take me out? Oh my fucking God, that's correct. You son of a bitches. You, each and one of you, my cousin, your parents, and the rest of your family, I should have been buried a long time ago. You got the nerve to go against our family, especially the head of our family. It's no wonder everybody's so scared of them. Look at the kind of fucking assholes that you people use, that you fucking stupid son of a bitch use to try and kill us. Got the nerve. Your cousin fucks the shit out. So those are the kind of assholes you fuck the shit out of? To try and fucking bury us? To give my daddy a cancer? Oh my God. And look at her mother. Her mother looks like a whore. Looks like she's been fucked up the anal, up the asshole as well. Oh my God. I can't wait to bury each and every one of you. And it ain't gonna be a fucking dream either. You got the fucking nerve. Hey madam, you bitch. Ah. Le longa o ye fela solo. Lo winga ko nga pa lang ila. Elu lo kasen le me ya ma fuck. Ah. Ko elu ayong ma ku fuck. All on behalf of that evil son of a bitch that runs that criminal organization. Oh my God. Don't you dare ever go near our family. Don't you ever use any of us for your rubbish. Your ass is not worth anything. My cousin's asshole, and her mother's and her father's ass are worth there at the whorehouse. That's the value of your assholes. That's the value of those rubbish Pākehās that you go and fuck the shit out of. Yeah, to bury good people. And even to try and bury a fucking clergyman? Are you fucking serious? Ka fefe. Lo wingo palangi la, pisi la, e o ailako lasso, poki, that's correct. E o mea yai ma wailako kupe la pisi. O kwa nga ufa la. Ka fefe. Bea o maile au sia mangi. Ma o I. E whak lako whai ai. I le pau sa sai pau mo moku solva pela. Your cousin, you're nothing more than just a piece of trash, piece of rag. Chuck around, that's correct. But you got the fucking nerve, bitch. You and Gayleen, if you ever fuck anybody, any rubbish Pākehās like that, who are commoners and criminals, to try and bury me, you will get it back. Your entire family. You got the nerve. You better rein your head in. That's correct. You better tell the asshole in Samoa to kill himself. Don't come back here in this country because he'll be taken out. I'm talking about, that's correct, the loser that you set me up with back in 96. Oh, it's so sad To think that your rallies would use loser barkouts like that. You know those barkouts? They ain't worth nothing. They're assholes. They're tails. They're not worth millions and billions. They're assholes. It's only worth, at the whorehouse and the brothel. I guess that's the kind of barkouts you like? Is that the kind of barkout you want to respect? Is that the kind of rubbish you want to respect and please and grease up to? Well, it's just as well I'm leaving your country. You bunch of evil son of a bitches, all right? To think that I am walking around and that fucking asshole police officer that they know very well, she probably has fucked the shit out of him, that's correct. And his so-called whoring ass wife, that's correct. Have all learned to understand you psychologically because they know your movements on your phone. Do you know that kind of information? Backass? The power behind that kind of information? When you can stalk somebody and you've got the coordinates about their movements on their cell phone, you will soon understand how they think. That's correct. That kind of information is not needed by a bunch of sick criminals. That's correct. There are not a bunch of losers like that who run people down. For a what? For a pussy? Like my cousin, it's not even worth anything. That lawyer ain't not to obey. His asshole is not even worth on a round table. It doesn't, in fact, it's not that valuable. The kind of assholes like that, they don't deserve to ascend to a round table. They don't need to be knighted. They don't even know the difference between a dame and a knight and a chief. The only thing you know is fuck the shit. That's correct. My knights and chiefs la, united. They'll just drag those kinds of people and hang them on the coat hangers. To say, you know what? You can go and clean up the stable. Can you go and feed my horse as well? And while you're at it, you can go and do all my washing. That's correct. Because that's the value of a whore. And that is the value of a tail. Now, go now. Who are you? You got no identity, no name? Right. If you do what I tell you to do, you might just get a title or a name. Now, go now. Go now. That's correct. That's what nobles would say. The people that are untitled and are thieves and commoners. You know what? You need to sweat the right way before you can get a title. That patch thing doesn't mean a thing to a noble like me. That's correct. It ain't worth anything. Right. I hope I have said enough to my congregation. But you all need to learn never to trust any nice-looking backyas or any nice-looking marriages, because they might be pre-planning, premeditating to bury your ass, your worthy ass or your royal ass. That's correct. So that they can steal what you have, what they don't have, what their ancestors couldn't give them because they're unworthy and they are thieves, commoners, and losers. Right. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.